Let me provide you with some background about my wife and me. My name is Ethan, and I am 45 years old. My wife, Emma, is 44. We have been married for 23 years and are the proud parents of a daughter named Morgan, who is currently in her final semester of college. Morgan has consistently brought immense joy into our lives and is pursuing a degree in education, aiming to become a math teacher. I grew up on a ranch in a small town in Texas, where I worked hard while still making time for sports, rodeos, and social activities. After graduating from high school, I sought a college education in agriculture, hoping to become a high school agricultural teacher. Due to my parents' financial constraints, I took on part-time work to help support our family. During my final semester of college, my parents made the decision to retire and sold the ranch, opting to move into a modest home in town. Tragically, they lost their lives in a car accident while returning from my graduation. As their only child, I inherited the proceeds from the sale, which turned out to be around $400,000, a surprising amount, as they had never revealed the exact figure to me. The months that followed were incredibly difficult as I grieved the loss of my parents, especially considering how unexpectedly they passed away. Yet, I pushed through my sorrow and, in August, seized an opportunity to teach agricultural science at a high school located just outside of Austin. I also chose to use my inheritance to buy a charming 25-acre ranch on the town's outskirts. On this property, I built a modern log cabin, a horse barn, and a training ring for the horses I planned to acquire, as well as investing in some cattle. While I wasn't actively seeking a partner, I remained open to the idea of finding someone to share my life and aspirations of starting a family. About a month into the school year, I met Emma through an introduction arranged by my mentor teacher. Initially, I felt a bit hesitant, but I thought it was worth a chance given my situation. When Emma opened the door, I was immediately captivated by her striking beauty. Our first date, which involved dinner and drinks, went smoothly, and I felt a strong connection with her. As we chatted on her balcony later that evening, I found myself wondering why such an amazing woman was still single. Emma shared my thoughts, complimenting me and expressing her attraction. I blushed as I admitted that I had never felt this way about anyone before and that there was something genuinely special about her. Thank you, Ethan. I completely understand. Most of the men I have dated have been either oblivious or inappropriate. I have never met anyone I wanted to commit to seriously until tonight, she replied. Turning to face her, our eyes locked, and we shared a kiss. It was not an overly passionate French kiss, but rather a gentle and tender exchange. We held that embrace for several minutes before I spoke up. Emma, I would like to see you again. We don't need to rush into anything, but I'm interested in exploring where this could lead. I want to understand you on a deeper level before we, Ethan, you are one of the sweetest men I have ever met. You are a true gentleman. Most guys would have already tried to make a move, she interjected. I chuckled and replied, I would be lying if I said that thought hadn't crossed my mind. You are incredibly beautiful and alluring. However, I hold you in high regard, even after our brief acquaintance. I'm looking to build a meaningful relationship, not just a fleeting encounter. She leaned in for another kiss and said, I feel the same way, Ethan. You are truly one of a kind, and I am eager to get to know you better. Emma came from a humble background where attending college was not financially feasible for her, so she opted for vocational training and administrative secretarial skills instead. For the past few years, she had been employed by a successful small business in Austin. Over the next several months, we grew closer and fell in love. About 4 weeks after our first date, we shared our first intimate moment. It was passionate and intense, occurring in the front seat of my truck after a movie. We barely made it to the vehicle before our desires took over. The windows fogged up, and the truck rocked as we experienced simultaneous ecstasy. Emma's enthusiasm was undeniable, filling the cab with her cries of pleasure. We returned to my home that night, spending it wrapped in each other's arms. It was a night filled with profound connection and passion, solidifying our love. In March, she moved in with me, and by June 1st, we were married. A little over a year later, Morgan came along, and for the next 23 years, we enjoyed a blissful family life. Though we weren't wealthy, we were content. Our intimate life remained vibrant, with Emma's passion never wavering, nor did mine. To be honest, in the last 5 or 6 months, our closeness had slowed down, but I still believed that the spark was there. Or was it? Now, here we are, 23 years later. About 6 months ago, Emma started a new job as the executive secretary for the chief executive officer and owner of BRB Enterprises. Her boss, Samuel Griffin, owns a manufacturing company that specializes in high-end electronics for the United States government. Given his significant wealth, I assumed his company was doing quite well, especially since he was the sole owner. Emma seemed genuinely fond of her new job and often spoke highly of Sam. Initially, I felt a twinge of jealousy until I met him. At 58 years old, he was balding and overweight, which made me feel like a model in comparison. When I asked Emma about it, she laughed and reassured me that no one could compare to me, babe. She frequently expressed her appreciation for our intimate moments, which eased my concerns. However, my discomfort resurfaced when Emma began joining him on business trips that stretched 2 or 3 days. Whenever I asked about it, she waved off my concerns, labeling them as routine work obligations. She insisted that she had her own accommodations and that their interactions were entirely business-focused. Though I remained somewhat uneasy, Emma provided no evidence to doubt her words, so I chose to avoid further confrontation. That brings me to that crucial Friday. After I returned home from school, I made a beeline for the barn, where I had been for about an hour when Emma showed up. As she stepped out of her car and walked toward the house, I called out, excited to see her and offering to grill steaks for dinner. Emma, fresh from yet another 3-day business trip with her boss, glanced in my direction but merely nodded before heading inside. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and asked her if she would prefer a beer or a glass of wine. She answered that a glass of wine would be delightful, still avoiding my gaze and fixating on the floor. Noticing her discomfort, I brought her a glass of wine and set the bottle beside her. When she finally looked up at me, her expression was troubled. After sharing a kiss and hug, I asked her what was bothering her. Noticing her distress, Emma gulped down her wine in one swift motion before refilling her glass. Her actions revealed her inner conflict, so I tried to reassure her, encouraging her to express what was troubling her, insisting it couldn't be that serious. She indicated the weight of her situation and asked me to listen without interruption. I held my breath in anticipation, unprepared for the revelation that was about to unfold. Ethan, I need you to know that I love you completely. What I am about to tell you does not reflect on your worth as a husband, partner, friend, or father. You are the most amazing man I have ever known. As she spoke, I sensed that this conversation was steering toward a life-changing truth. Ethan, I have decided to file for divorce. I will be leaving right away. Your worries about Sam and me are justified. We have been having an affair for the past 5 months. He has fallen deeply in love with me, and we plan to marry once our divorce is finalized. We will divide everything equally, but you will keep the house, the ranch, and all our possessions. I will only take my clothes and personal belongings. She paused briefly, allowing her words to sink in. Go ahead, I replied, surprisingly calm despite the boiling anger and deep hurt swirling within me. I will file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Let's make this process as quick, simple, and painless as we can. She continued, giving me space to respond, and respond I did. Emma, do you love Sam? I have respect for him and find him interesting. Perhaps in time, I will come to love him. Emma, does Sam satisfy you physically more than I do? Is he a better lover? Were you unhappy with our intimacy? No, Ethan, he doesn't even compare. You have always been a fantastic lover, and I have always been fulfilled by you, she assured me. Have I mistreated you? Are you unhappy with me? I am genuinely struggling to understand why you are choosing to end our marriage and break up our family. Emma, I am truly confused. I confessed. Ethan, when I am kind to Sam, he showers me with extravagant gifts. He loves me deeply and enjoys showing his appreciation. He believes that marrying him will bring me a life of comfort, free from work and filled with luxury. Fancy cars, global travel, designer clothes, and fine dining, she explained. So this is about money? You're trading up for a rich man? Well, Emma, there's a term for what you're doing, and it starts with app, I retorted bitterly. Emma tearfully protested, insisting that she was not a call girl. She expressed regret for the pain she was causing me but justified her choice to pursue the opportunity to marry a wealthy man. I conveyed the immense anguish her actions were inflicting on me. I expressed my disappointment, recounting the 23 years of hard work and dedication I had put into providing for her, offering everything from love and affection to my heart and soul. Apologizing for not meeting her financial expectations, I asked for some time alone, informing her that I would be in the barn while she packed. I sensed her remorse, yet her attention seemed focused on her newfound wealth. As I sat on a bale of hay in the barn, an overwhelming tide of emotion surged within me. This was different. Tears flowed down my face. I seldom cried. My father had always taught me that men don't cry, yet in that moment, I felt a deep despair. What could I have done differently? Was this my fault? Those thoughts pierced my heart as I wept, realizing this would be the last time Emma would bring me to tears. Emma entered the barn, glanced at me, and exclaimed, "Oh my God, what have I done? Ethan, you never cry. Have I hurt you that deeply? Oh, Ethan, I am so sorry." Well, Emma, out of the blue, you come home and drop this bombshell. You're shattering our marriage, tearing our family apart, moving out and filing for divorce. And for the last 5 months, you've been with another man. To top it all off, you claim it's because I didn't earn enough money. Yet you say you still love me, but it seems love means nothing to you anymore. Ethan, I have to leave. Sam and I are flying to Paris early tomorrow. We'll be gone for a few days. When I come back, I'll initiate the divorce proceedings as soon as possible. Are you really in such a hurry to throw away the 23 years we've spent together? Have you thought about how Morgan will react? I will call her tonight. She will understand. Sam has promised to buy her a new Mercedes and pay off her college loans, including the ones you co-signed. No, thank you, Emma. I can manage my own loans, and I doubt Morgan can be swayed as easily as you have been. She gave me a strange look but chose not to respond. You'd better leave, Emma. But just know that once you go, it's final. I will not take you back. This is a disaster in the making, so don't come crying to me later. And please, don't forget to satisfy your sugar daddy tonight. I sensed she contemplated my words for a moment. Part of me hoped she might have second thoughts. But then she said her goodbye. Ethan, I love you and will miss you. I responded softly, I love you too, Emma. After she left, I sat down and shed more tears. Eventually, I collected myself and resolved to move on. I turned to my 2 horses, acknowledging that they were now the only females left in my life, and I trusted in their loyalty. I walked over, petted them both, and they responded with gentle nudges. Making my way back to the empty house, I grabbed another beer. About an hour later, Morgan called. Dad, are you okay? I just talked to Mom. Has she lost her mind? What's she thinking? She's hooked up with a sugar daddy and believes his money will make her happy. I replied, I guess I couldn't meet all her desires in life. That's nonsense, Dad. She thinks that old creep and his cash will complete her life. She tried to convince me he'd be a great stepdad, promising me a new car and paying off my college loans. I told her to shove that car where the sun doesn't shine. I had to chuckle, relieved my daughter saw through it all. I reassured her and we chatted, lifting my spirits. She promised to support me and vowed to stay away from the sugar daddy. After a few beers, I dozed off on the couch, but my night was plagued by unsettling dreams. In one, I found myself in a mall, where I stumbled upon Emma performing oral sex on Sam in a women's dressing room. She glanced up, laughed, and continued despite Sam's notably small member, which measured a mere 2 inches. The next morning, my old college roommate Owen called, greeting me and mentioning that we had kept in touch over the years. He reminded me that he works for the FBI's fraud division and had been my best man at our wedding, remaining one of my closest friends. It had been a couple of months since our last chat. I returned Owen's greeting, asking how he was doing. He replied that he was doing well and asked about my situation. I admitted that things weren't going so great, explaining that Emma had left me the day before and was seeking a divorce, which was why I was reaching out. Owen expressed a strong desire to see me, saying he was in town and could come over quickly if it was all right with me. I asked how he had known about Emma leaving me, to which he replied he didn't actually know. However, he had some information to share that he believed would interest me. I agreed to meet shortly, pondering what Owen could possibly know about my predicament. It all felt increasingly bizarre, though thoughts of revenge hadn't crossed my mind yet. I had a sinking feeling that it might not be far off. Owen arrived about 30 minutes later, and I offered him a cup of coffee as we settled onto my back deck in the lovely morning sun. Owen admired the peaceful surroundings before expressing his regret about the end of my marriage. Even though I shared everything with him, he didn't seem surprised. "Owen, it feels like you already knew about Emma and Sam," I commented. "Ethan, what I am about to tell you must remain between us," Owen cautioned. "I shouldn't be sharing this, but as your friend, I feel it's necessary. We cannot discuss this with anyone else." "Of course, Owen. This sounds more serious than just marital problems," I replied. "It is, Ethan. It's also official business on my end. I'm involved in an operation concerning Samuel Griffin. We suspect he has been committing fraud with government contracts, potentially defrauding the U.S. government of millions. If proven, he will be in serious trouble. We've been gathering evidence undercover for several months. In a couple of months, I think we will have everything we need to bring him to justice." "Wow, Owen. This is incredible. I can't stand that guy. I would do anything to see him taken down. It would serve Emma right. How could she be so foolish? Leaving you for that idiot was a dumb move on her part. Plus, since Emma is his executive secretary, she's become a person of interest in this investigation." "Holy crap, Owen. Is Emma involved in this fraud?" "We don't believe so. We haven't found any evidence indicating she's aware of his crimes. However, she will inevitably get caught up in this. When everything comes to light, she will face a harsh reality. She thinks she's marrying a wealthy man and will live happily ever after. During our surveillance, we discovered Emma's affair with Sam. I was waiting until I had solid proof before I told you, Ethan. I suppose her lust for wealth led her to betray you." Owen opened his briefcase and pulled out a large envelope, tossing it onto the table in front of me. "Inside this, you'll find plenty of evidence regarding their affair. Use it however you see fit for your divorce. But remember, if anyone asks, you didn't get this from me." I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside, I found a collection of 8x10 photographs, emails, and several explicit videos clearly documenting Emma and Sam engaged in various sexual acts, all meticulously dated and timed. The sight stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me, and I struggled to keep my composure. "Thank you for going to such lengths, Owen," I said, forcing a calm tone. As I sifted through the material, I couldn't help but notice a troubling detail. In the close-up shots of Emma during these encounters, she didn't seem to be enjoying herself at all. Her expressions were not those of pleasure, but rather of feigned excitement. I knew her well enough to recognize when she was truly satisfied, and those moments of intimacy were far from what I remembered. Another ironic detail hit me hard. Sam's penis was indeed small. Owen said he had to get back to work but would be in town for a few more days. He anticipated a confrontation with Griffin soon and wanted to keep me in the loop. "Owen, let's grab dinner tomorrow night. I want to treat you for all you've done for me during this mess." "Sounds great, Ethan. My sister Jenna is in town, too. Mind if she joins us?" "Not at all. I haven't seen her since she was 13 and sporting braces. I hear she's 36 now and quite the looker. Ironically, her divorce was just finalized today. Apparently, she caught her husband in bed with his secretary when she returned from a business trip. That sounds like quite the story. We might have a lot to discuss. She's a partner at a corporate law firm, and she's here to open a new office. Maybe she can help you find a good divorce attorney. I'll definitely ask her about that. See you tomorrow." The next evening, I met Owen and Jenna at a local Mexican restaurant. Owen's sister was every bit as stunning as he had described. She greeted me with a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek. I couldn't help but tease her about her transformation from the awkward 13-year-old I remembered to the confident woman standing before me. She giggled, acknowledging the change, and we shared a light moment. During dinner, we talked about my situation. Owen had briefed her on the details, and we all agreed to keep everything confidential due to the ongoing investigation. Owen also mentioned that I could make use of the photos and videos, claiming they had been obtained by a private investigator. I filled them in on Emma's intention to file for divorce upon her return from Paris, citing irreconcilable differences. "Crap," Jenna interjected. "You need to be proactive. I know an excellent family lawyer who specializes in infidelity cases. She made my ex-husband pay dearly. I have her card in my hotel room. We can grab it later and get things moving for Monday, so you can serve Emma when she's back from Paris." Everything was moving so quickly, but I admired Jenna's decisiveness and found myself wondering if she might be interested in going out with me. As dinner drew to a close, Owen received a call and had to excuse himself. He offered to pick up the tab, but I insisted it was my treat. Jenna and I finished our margaritas and prepared to leave. "What do you say we go dancing? The night is still young," she suggested. I readily agreed, thrilled at the prospect. For the next couple of hours, we danced, laughed, and savored each other's company. It was as if we had known each other forever. Our chemistry was undeniable. I felt relaxed and at ease in her presence. After our dance session, we returned to the restaurant to pick up her car. She invited me to follow her to her hotel, where she could give me her lawyer's card. Once inside her room, she handed it to me and instructed me to call her friend's cell phone the next day. "Let's aim for Monday," she said confidently, adding that she would inform her friend in advance, assuring me she would be accommodating since they were close. "Thank you so much for this," I said, filled with gratitude. "How can I repay you?" Without hesitation, she threw her arms around me and kissed me passionately. We melted into each other, and soon we found ourselves on her bed, wrapped up in each other's embrace. The kiss deepened, and we lost ourselves in the moment, exploring one another as if we were discovering a new world. When we paused for breath, I admitted I had wanted to kiss her from the moment I first laid eyes on her. She responded with warmth, complimenting my looks and saying I was handsome. Our kissing resumed, intensifying as our hands roamed freely. I felt a rush of desire as she touched me through my jeans, and my hands slipped under her blouse, igniting a fire within me. I suggested we take things slowly, voicing my concern about taking advantage of her vulnerability after her recent divorce. She met my gaze, a spark of confidence in her eyes. "I know what I want, Ethan. I'm a grown woman, and I'm deeply attracted to you. You don't need to worry about me. I might be the one taking advantage here." Jenna opened up about her initial feelings when she discovered her husband's betrayal, how she had blamed herself at first and questioned her own worth. But she quickly realized it wasn't her fault. She recognized her own strengths, her youth, beauty, and confidence. "You shouldn't blame yourself for Emma leaving either," she said, her voice steady. "After everything we've talked about tonight, it's clear that you're not the one at fault here." She shared her own reflections, recalling how she had wondered if she had somehow caused her husband's infidelity, questioning if she had failed him in some way. But after spending time with me that night, she had come to see things differently. "We're both navigating this together," she concluded, her eyes meeting mine with an understanding that felt profound. He reflected on his role as a father, husband, and lover, proud of the effort he had put into providing for his family. They shared tender kisses, finding solace in each other's embrace on the bed. When morning came, they awoke wrapped in one another's arms, a warmth enveloping them. He invited her to lunch at his house and suggested they go horseback riding, a pastime she adored. Later, they found themselves on the couch, the air thick with tension, where their passion reignited. They lost themselves in a deep make-out session, yet they decided to take things slow for the moment. They agreed to keep seeing each other, curious to see where this new path might lead. He took Monday off to meet with Sophie, the attorney Jenna had recommended. As he recounted his story and presented all the evidence he had gathered, He noticed Sophie's disgust at his wife's actions and demeanor, a response he expected, given her 3 decades of legal experience. Sophie outlined a strategy for filing for divorce based on infidelity and abandonment, asserting their claim to the house, ranch, and assets. They had $10,000 in savings, which they would split evenly, while he would retain all the funds in their checking account. Since Jenna was already managing her own car payments, and her credit card was in her name, she would keep those as well. He covered her car and health insurance, but Sophie advised him to cancel both as soon as possible, along with any shared credit cards. She was meticulous, ensuring he was well prepared for the process ahead. Explicit photos and videos would be reserved for use only if absolutely necessary. Sophie asked when Emma would be back from Paris, and he informed her that she was scheduled to return on Thursday morning. He provided Sophie with the address Emma had given him for any potential mail forwarding. Sophie assured him that she would serve Emma with the papers on Thursday morning. While Emma might take issue with the infidelity claim, he felt she would likely agree to the other terms, particularly since she seemed eager for a quick divorce to marry Mr. Griffin. Sophie suggested they inform Emma that the infidelity clause could be modified if she agreed to sign the papers as they stood. He agreed, eager for Emma to acknowledge her wrongdoing. On Thursday morning around 10:30 a.m., my cell phone rang. Since I didn't have any classes that day, I answered. It was Emma, sounding distraught. She questioned why she had received divorce papers, insisting that we had agreed I would file. I explained that I hadn't agreed to anything. I was merely trying to expedite the process in accordance with her wishes. Emma pressed me about the details of the divorce papers, particularly the mentions of infidelity and abandonment. I suggested we could revise those to irreconcilable differences. "I didn't agree to this," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "You should accept the settlement. You'll soon be a wealthy man's ex-husband." She then offered to modify the grounds for divorce if I would sign the settlement as is. I relayed this information to Sophie, who prepared an updated copy of the documents as she had anticipated. Sophie noted that she was familiar with Sam's lawyer, describing him as a corporate attorney lacking experience in divorce cases. "He'll probably just tell Emma to sign without giving it much thought," she predicted. Sure enough, true to Sophie's expectations, Emma signed the papers, and they were back at Sophie's office by Friday afternoon. I stopped by after work to add my signature. The divorce would be finalized in 60 days. That evening, I called Jenna, and we arranged to meet for dinner near her new office. Over a pleasant meal that lasted about 2 hours, Jenna sensed my need to talk. I definitely did, but we agreed to keep things platonic for the night, planning to save any romantic activities for Saturday night instead. Later that night, Emma called, expressing concern for my well-being. She told me she no longer had the right to call me pet names. I stood firm, reminding her that I would survive, even after the pain she had inflicted on me. I made it clear that she had hurt me deeply, yet it no longer mattered because she had achieved what she desired. She was no longer interested in our life together. Emma offered a half-hearted apology, saying she hadn't meant to hurt me and that she still loved me. I dismissed her words, informing her that as part of the settlement, I would be canceling her car and health insurance, giving her until the following Friday to arrange her own coverage. She thanked me and assured me that Sam would take care of everything. I clarified that my intention was simply to inform her, not to worry her. As the conversation neared its conclusion, Emma said goodbye, hoping I wouldn't think of her as a terrible person. "I had to do what I had to do," she insisted, reiterating her love for me. I began to feel a wave of emotion wash over me, and I sensed she could hear it in my voice. I said my farewell, wishing her a nice life with her new partner, then ended the call before she could respond. It was time for me to start my own new chapter, with aspirations for Jenna to play a significant role in that journey. Jenna arrived at my house on Saturday night at 6 o'clock, looking absolutely breathtaking. Let me paint a picture. She stood about 5 feet 9 inches tall, with long blonde hair, shapely legs, and curves that seemed sculpted by the gods. She wore a cute little red dress that hugged her figure perfectly, revealing just enough cleavage to be enticing. My excitement was palpable, straining against my jeans. We enjoyed a lovely dinner on my deck, overlooking the ranch, paired with plenty of wine. We talked, laughed, and flirted for nearly 2 hours until she looked me in the eye, playfully declaring that if I didn't take her to bed soon, she might just explode. "Come on, cowboy," she teased, and without a second thought, I swept her off her feet and amad her to my bedroom. We wasted no time shedding our clothes and losing ourselves in each other's embrace. The following weeks unfolded with Jenna and me spending an increasing amount of time together. I suggested she move in with me, but she preferred to wait until my divorce was finalized. Despite that, she often spent the night in my bed, making the moments together all the more special. About 5 days before my divorce became official, Owen called me with some significant news. "We're on the verge of taking action against Griffin and his business. We have substantial evidence and witnesses lined up. Everything he owns will be seized." "What about Emma?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice. "She'll be questioned, but it seems she's in the clear for now. Still, she'll be losing her financial support, and let me tell you, she's in for a rough ride." "That's her problem now," I replied, my voice flat. "Ethan, my sister is genuinely thrilled about your relationship. After her divorce, she was devastated. Do you think you might become my brother-in-law someday?" he inquired, a hopeful tone in his voice. "I certainly hope so, Owen. It really depends on whether she wants me to. But I can tell you, I've fallen in love with your sister. Trust me, she loves you too. I'll keep you updated on the Griffin situation. Don't be surprised if Emma reaches out to you." It was Friday, a day I had been eagerly anticipating. Not only was I excited to spend the weekend with Jenna, but it also marked the end of my marriage to Emma. On my way home from work, I decided to stop at a convenience store to grab some beer for the weekend. Just then, the phone rang. Emma was calling. She wanted to meet. I agreed to lunch, inviting Jenna to join, but she declined, knowing the purpose of the meeting and trusting me to handle it. I had taken the entire week off from work, planning to resign once they found a replacement, and life was busy. Emma and I met at a nice downtown restaurant I suggested. The sight of her shocked me. She had gained weight and honestly didn't look well. It was clear that the past few days had taken a toll on her. The news of her entanglement with Griffin had spread like wildfire, and I could see people whispering and pointing as she entered. Choosing to sit outside where we could avoid prying eyes, we found a table away from the crowd. Initially, we exchanged pleasantries, but it wasn't long before the facade crumbled, and she broke down in tears. "Ethan, leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I'm not saying this just because Sam got arrested. I realized it a few weeks after moving in with him. At first, it felt thrilling, but the excitement faded quickly. I was miserable and felt sick every time I had to be intimate with him. I never expected this," she continued, her voice cracking. "I thought money was everything when I left you, but I've been overwhelmed with guilt for how I treated you and Morgan. Morgan barely speaks to me anymore. You didn't deserve what I put you through, Ethan. You were a good husband and provider. I had everything I needed. I just didn't see it back then." "Thank you, Emma. I appreciate your honesty," I replied cautiously. "But you made those choices because you weren't truly happy with me." "I was happy with you, Ethan," she insisted, desperation evident in her tone. "I let that old goat manipulate me. He seduced me, convinced me to leave you for him and his money. The night before his arrest, he forced himself on me. He's a disgusting, perverted old man. I hope he rots in jail." I fought the urge to laugh at her misfortune, choosing instead to maintain my composure. "Where is this leading, Emma? What do you want from me?" I asked. Tears welled in her eyes as she pleaded. "Please take me back, Ethan. I love you and miss you terribly. I miss our home, the ranch, the horses, everything we shared. I would do anything to make it right. Emma, do you truly miss me? Or is it just because you're facing financial ruin with no place to go?" I inquired, holding her gaze. "I'm broke, Ethan, with nowhere to turn," she admitted, her voice laced with despair. "But I miss you terribly. I want things to go back to the way they were." Emma, when you left, I made it clear that it was final. There's no going back, I reiterated firmly. Your departure was meant to be permanent. I understand, Ethan, but I need you desperately. I'm at my wit's end. You're my last hope, she implored.
I'm sorry, Emma.
I've moved on and found love with someone else. We plan to marry eventually, but we're taking things slow because of our past experiences with our former spouses. I explained, feeling the weight of her devastation. She sat there, tears streaming down her face, clearly blindsided by the reality of my new life. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for her. I once contemplated revenge when you left, but now I want to help, I said, my voice softening. Is there anything I can do to assist you? Emma looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and defeat. I suppose I was naive to think you'd take me back. I don't blame you. I wouldn't take me back either. But if you could lend me $5,000 until I find a job and a place of my own. I'm staying with a friend right now, but I need my own space. How much do you need, Emma? I asked, my curiosity mingling with concern. If you could loan me $5,000, I'll start paying you back once I find employment, she replied, her voice hopeful. As the waiter set our meals in front of us, Emma dove into her food, but my appetite had vanished. I watched her for a moment, then pulled out my checkbook, feeling the weight of the decision I was about to make. With a few swift strokes of my pen, I wrote a check and handed it to her, folded. Emma, this should help you start anew. You're a skilled secretary. I'm sure you'll find a job. If not, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. I truly regret how everything unfolded. My dream was to grow old with you, holding hands as Morgan said her wedding vows, watching our grandkids take their first horseback rides, and eventually being buried beside you on our ranch. It seems fate had different plans for us. With those words, I rose from the table, leaving the restaurant behind. I tucked a $100 bill under my plate to cover the bill and tip. Stealing a glance back, I saw her opening the check, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief as she looked up, only to find me already gone. I had left her with a pointed message. A smirk crossed my face as I walked away, and I could see her watching from the deck as I drove off. After that day, Jenna moved in, and we tied the knot the following spring. Owen stood by my side as my best man, while Morgan took on the role of maid of honor, having become close friends with Jenna. Our wedding took place in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace, with a small group of friends and family celebrating with us. The reception unfolded in our honeymoon suite, creating an unforgettable experience for everyone involved. I struck it lucky that night, winning over $200,000 on a progressive slot machine, a testament to my penchant for gambling success. Emma wasn't part of the festivities, but she eventually caught wind of our news through the local paper. As time passed, she found a job and a place to live, though she never reimbursed the loan I had given her. A development I hadn't expected. Rumor had it she was dating a high school English teacher now, and I hoped she found happiness in that new chapter of her life. Meanwhile, Sam Griffin faced trial and was convicted of federal crimes, with all his assets seized to repay the government. He would be spending a considerable amount of time behind bars. Perhaps he would find companionship better suited to his taste there.